The first explosion ripped through New Titan Station before the alarm even had a chance to sound. A massive Valkyrie warship, bristling with plasma cannons, loomed over the burning colony, its weapons tearing through steel and flesh alike. Millions of innocent lives were extinguished in moments. Admiral Marcus Steele watched the disaster unfold from the bridge of the U.E.F, resolute, his fists clenched tight. The enemy had struck without warning, and now humanity was caught in the flames of a war it had never wanted. They've hit Arden, 3, New Titan, and half a dozen colonies in the outer systems, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Lynn reported grimly. Casualties, in the billions. Steele exhaled slowly. They're trying to wipe us out. The Valkyrie Dominion was known throughout the galaxy as a warrior empire, conquering weaker species and exterminating those who resisted. Humanity, despite its advancements, had never faced an enemy this ruthless before. The Dominion's fleets outnumbered Earth's many times over, and their technology was terrifyingly advanced. Yet, if the Valkyrie thought humanity would roll over and die, they were gravely mistaken. Open a secure channel to the High Command, Steele ordered. We're going to war. The holoscreen flickered, revealing President Eleanor Vasquez and her military council. Their faces were pale, but their eyes were hardened. Admiral Steele, Vasquez said. Tell me we have a plan. Steele's jaw tightened. Not yet. But I'll make one. Vasquez nodded. We're declaring full wartime mobilization. Every ship, every soldier, we're putting everything on the line. This is humanity's greatest war, Admiral. We either win, or we die. The words hung in the air. There was no negotiation, no room for surrender. The Valkyrie did not take prisoners. Lynn hesitated. Sir, they're already moving towards Mars. Steele turned toward the main display. A fleet of dozens of Valkyrie warships was pushing deeper into UEF space. If Mars fell, Earth was next. The room was silent for a long moment. Then, Steele spoke. Then we hit them back. Lynn blinked. Sir? We can't outgun them. We can't outnumber them. But we sure as hell can outthink them. Steele's eyes gleamed. Get me tactical. We're going to turn this war on its head. As alarms blared across the fleet and the first battles began in earnest, one thing became clear. The greatest war in galactic history had begun. The bridge of the U.E.F, resolute, was bathed in the cool glow of tactical displays, each one showing a grim reality. Humanity's fleets were outnumbered, outgunned, and being pushed back at every front. The Valkyrie were relentless, their warships cutting through colony defenses like a blade through soft flesh. But Admiral Marcus Steele had no intention of letting this war become a massacre. If humanity was to survive, it had to stop reacting and start fighting back. Steele turned to Lieutenant Commander Sarah Lynn, his most trusted officer. What do we know about their supply lines? Lynn's fingers danced across the console, pulling up intel from intercepted Valkyrie transmissions. The Dominion's fleets are operating at full strength, but they rely on a supply chain stretching from their core worlds to the front. If we hit the right targets, we can slow them down. Steele's lips curled into a grim smile. Then that's exactly what we'll do. #### the plan. With Earth's defenses barely holding and Mars in imminent danger, Steele formulated a high-risk, high-reward strategy. Instead of facing the Valkyrie in a direct battle, they would strike behind enemy lines. Their target, Outpost 47, a key Valkyrie supply station nestled in an asteroid belt near the front. It was lightly defended, as the Dominion didn't believe humans capable of deep strike tactics. That mistake would cost them. The Resolute, leading a small strike fleet of 5 ships, would jump in, hit the outpost hard, and disappear before reinforcements arrived. If successful, it would cripple the enemy's logistical support and buy time for the rest of the UEF to regroup. As the fleet prepped for the mission, Steele addressed the crew. I won't lie to you. The Dominion outmatches us in every way. They think we're nothing but insects to be crushed underfoot. But they underestimate us. We don't win wars with brute strength, we win with ingenuity, precision, and sheer human determination. Tonight, we remind them that we are not prey. We are predators. A roar of approval echoed through the Resolute's decks. #### the ambush. The strike fleet dropped out of slipspace just outside the asteroid belt. The Varkari outpost sat nestled within the rocks, its supply depots and fuel reserves gleaming under the system's twin suns. 3 enemy destroyers patrolled lazily, unaware of the storm about to descend. "Take us in," Steele ordered. "Nice and quiet." Using the asteroid belt for cover, the UEF ships weaved through the debris field, their stealth plating reducing their energy signatures. Then, at Steele's signal, they struck. The Resolute's railguns fired first, sending hypervelocity slugs straight through the lead destroyer's engines. The explosion tore the ship in half before it could even raise shields. The other 2 destroyers scrambled to respond, but it was too late. A second salvo from the fleet turned them into burning wrecks. Within seconds, the outpost was defenseless. UEF boarding teams launched in drop pods, smashing into the station's hull. Fierce close-quarters combat erupted in the corridors, but the Varkari, caught completely off guard, were overwhelmed. Lynn's voice came through the comms. "Admiral, the main supply depots are rigged with explosives. Ready on your mark." Steele watched the battle unfold on the holodisplay. The mission had gone perfectly. Now it was time to make a statement. Blow it. #### the message to the galaxy. Explosions rippled across Outpost 47, sending shockwaves through the asteroid belt. The station collapsed in on itself, fire and debris scattering in all directions. The Dominion's entire frontline supply chain had just been severed. But Steele wasn't done. "Transmit the battle footage to all Dominion channels," he ordered. "Let them see what happens when they underestimate us." Within minutes, the entire galaxy witnessed the destruction of Outpost 47, proof that humanity was not defeated, not broken, and not afraid to fight. #### the Varkari's response. Back on the Dominion's capital world, the War Council watched in stunned silence. The human admiral had done what no species before them had dared, they had taken the fight directly to the Dominion. Enraged, Supreme Warlord Koreshtor slammed his clawed fist onto the war table. "Find this Steele. Hunt him down. Burn his world to ashes, ****. Humanity had drawn first blood, but the full wrath of the Dominion was now coming for them. The war had taken an unexpected turn. The destruction of Outpost 47 had crippled the Varkari supply lines, forcing them to slow their advance. Humanity had bought time, but time alone wouldn't win the war. The United Earth Federation, UEF, was still outnumbered, and Steele knew that, sooner or later, the full force of the Varkari Dominion would descend upon them. If Earth stood alone, it would fall. Humanity needed allies. #### a risky proposal. Deep within Siren space, the U.E.F. Resolute drifted in orbit above an unnamed jungle world. Below, a vast city sprawled beneath a shimmering energy dome, home to the Siren Coalition, a race of brilliant but paranoid tacticians. The Siren had long resisted the Varkari's rule, but they had never openly defied them. They operated from the shadows, sabotaging Varkari supply chains and feeding intelligence to their enemies, but never enough to bring the Dominion's wrath down upon them. Now, Steele was about to ask them to make a choice. The Siren High Council had assembled in their great chamber, a circular hall lined with glowing blue data panels. Their leader, Archstrategos Rethis, stood before Steele, his amber eyes filled with skepticism. "You are asking us to fight a war we cannot win," Rethis said coldly. "Humanity's defiance is admirable, but the Dominion will exterminate you." Steele folded his arms. "They'll exterminate you too. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. The only reason they haven't crushed you yet is because they don't see you as a threat." Rethis's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Steele pressed on. "Help us, and we can break the Dominion's hold on the galaxy. Stand aside, and when we fall, you'll be next." The council whispered among themselves, their eyes flickering between Steele and Rethis. Then Rethis spoke. "We will not send our fleets to die in your war," he said. "But, we will give you something else." Steele raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." #### the Siren's gift. Rethis gestured to a nearby console, and a holographic blueprint appeared above the chamber floor. "This is the Nyx Protocol, a stealth warfare initiative we have been developing for decades. With this technology, your ships will be able to infiltrate enemy territory undetected. Your soldiers will be able to strike before the Dominion even knows they're there." Steele studied the blueprint. The Nyx Protocol utilized advanced cloaking fields and electronic warfare suites, allowing ships to become virtually invisible to Dominion sensors. With this, humanity could strike at the heart of the Varkari war machine. Steele smiled. "Now we're talking." ###the betrayal. The deal was struck. The Siren would provide cloaking technology, intelligence, and logistical support, but they would not send their fleets into battle. As the Resolute prepared to leave, Lynn approached Steele, concern etched on her face. "Sir, I don't trust them," she said. "The Siren never commit to anything fully. What if they sell us out to the Dominion?" Steele nodded grimly. "They might. But right now, we don't have the luxury of saying no." As the Resolute jumped back to UEF space, none of them realized the Siren Council had already sent a message to the Varkari High Command. To Supreme Warlord Koreshtor. "The humans seek to resist you. We have given them the tools to fight, but we have also given you the means to track them. Let them think they have gained the upper hand. Then crush them." The trap was set. #### a new weapon, a new plan. Back in UEF Command, Steele wasted no time integrating the Nyx Protocol into his fleet. Cloaked stealth cruisers were outfitted with the new technology, ready to infiltrate enemy lines. His new plan was ambitious, a surgical strike on a Varkari command station deep behind enemy lines. If successful, it would cripple the Dominion's war coordination. But Steele didn't know the truth, the Varkari were already waiting for him. The Nyx Protocol had changed everything. The United Earth Federation, UEF, fleet was now equipped with technology that could make them ghosts in the void, slipping past Varkari defenses unnoticed. It was a glimmer of hope in the dark. But Steele knew it was only a matter of time before the Dominion adapted. He had to strike before they did. Their target, Varkari Command Station Alpha, a massive fortress on a distant moon, where the Dominion coordinated their entire war effort. If Steele could take it down, it would cripple the Dominion's strategic capabilities and create chaos among their ranks. #### infiltration. The Resolute, along with its newly equipped stealth cruisers, slipped into enemy space under the cover of darkness. For the first time, Steele felt the advantage was theirs. The ship's systems hummed with quiet power as they entered Varkari-controlled space. "Stealth mode engaged," Lynn reported, her voice calm but tense. Steele's gaze never left the viewport. He knew the risks: one wrong move, and the entire fleet would be torn apart before they even knew what hit them. "Keep our profile low. We don't want them to know we're here until we're already on top of them," Steele ordered. Hours passed without incident. Then, the massive shadow of Command Station Alpha appeared on the sensors. The Varkari had underestimated the humans, believing that no one could infiltrate their highly guarded command center. They were wrong. Steele knew that a direct attack would be impossible, the station's defenses were too strong. But with the Nyx Protocol in full effect, they could slip right past the outer layers. "Prepare to board," Steele said. "We hit them hard and fast. No room for mistakes." #### the assault. The UEF strike team, made up of the best soldiers from Earth's most elite units, dropped onto the surface of Command Station Alpha in stealth pods. The exterior of the station was covered in thick, spiked armor, but the pods punched through it like paper. The soldiers, equipped with silent, rapid-fire weapons, moved swiftly through the dark corridors, disabling security systems as they went. The Valkyrie didn't know what hit them. By the time the Dominion forces mobilized a response, it was already too late. The human soldiers had seized the main control room, and the Valkyrie command staff was either captured or dead. Steele watched the chaos unfold from a secure location within the station. "This is it," Steele muttered, staring at the data streams flowing on his holotable. "We're in. Now we just need to destroy their network." A few keystrokes, and Steele activated the destruction protocol. The entire command station began to shake. The Valkyrie had no idea they were about to lose everything they had built. "We're out of time," Lynn said urgently. "We've triggered their self-destruct sequence. We need to get out now." Steele didn't hesitate. "Abort the destruction sequence. We're taking this station with us." But it was too late. The countdown was already in motion. ####The betrayal unfolds. As Steele and his team made their way back to the surface, the Nix protocol failed for the first time. A strange energy surge rippled through the station, and for a brief moment, the UEF ships were visible to the enemy. It wasn't a coincidence. The Siren's betrayal had begun. Steele's comms crackled to life. "Admiral, we've got a problem. Our stealth systems are failing. We're being targeted by the Valkyrie. Get us out of here, now!" Steele barked, his heart racing. The Valkyrie had finally located them. In an instant, Valkyrie destroyers dropped out of slip space, surrounding the station. Their weapons opened fire. The Resolute and its stealth fleet engaged in a desperate defense, but it was clear, they were outmatched. "Admiral, we're going to lose the fleet," Lynn said, her voice sharp. "They're overwhelming us." Steele's eyes narrowed. The Siren had played them. They had given humanity just enough hope to make this attack, and then led them straight into a trap. "Prepare for emergency extraction," Steele ordered. "We're leaving. Now." ###the escape. The UEF ships fought their way out, but the damage was catastrophic. As the Resolute broke free from the Valkyrie trap, Steele glanced over at the burning wreckage of their stealth cruisers. "We're not done yet," Steele said, a steely resolve settling over him. "This war is far from over." But it was clear, the battle for survival had just taken a darker turn. The Valkyrie had found humanity's weak point, and now they would exploit it. Steele's victory had been short-lived, but the consequences of this failure would echo across the galaxy. The next move would be humanity's. But they had to survive long enough to make it. The Siren betrayal had set humanity back, but Admiral Steele knew one undeniable truth: Earth was still the beating heart of the United Earth Federation, UEF, and if it fell, humanity's war would be lost. Now, the Dominion knew the location of Earth's homeworld, and their ships were already making their way toward it. The time for strategic subterfuge was over. Steele had no choice but to prepare for a direct confrontation. ###preparing for the onslaught. Earth's defenses had always been formidable, but never in their history had they faced an enemy with the sheer firepower of the Valkyrie Dominion. The Valkyrie fleet, led by Supreme Warlord Koresh Tor, was en route to Earth with overwhelming numbers. For humanity, it was an existential battle. If Earth fell ***, it would mean the end of human resistance across the galaxy. Steele stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring out at the stars. The moment of truth had arrived. "Admiral," Lynn said, her voice tight, "the Dominion is within striking range. We have 2 hours before they hit Earth's orbit." Steele nodded, turning to the tactical officer. "Deploy all available fleets in defense of Earth. Prepare the planetary shields, and initiate full battle readiness." Lynn stepped forward, her voice laced with determination. "We've pulled everything we can into this defense. But, Steele, it won't be enough. Not without reinforcements." "I know," he replied. "But Earth won't fall. Not today." ### The last stand. The massive Valkyrie fleet arrived in orbit above Earth, a dark cloud of destruction. Koreshtor's warships loomed large, each one a fortress of flame and death. The Dominion's opening salvo unleashed devastating firepower on Earth's outer defenses. But the UEF had prepared. A network of orbital defense platforms opened fire, shield generators pulsed with energy, and fighter squadrons launched from Earth's surface, engaging the Valkyrie in a fierce, desperate battle. Humanity's defenses were holding, barely. "Steel," Lynn said, urgency in her voice. "We need to push back, or they'll break through the outer defenses. We can't afford to let them reach Earth's surface." Steel clenched his fists. The planet below him, the home of billions, was about to face its greatest trial. This was no longer a battle for territory. It was a battle for survival. "Take us in," Steel commanded. "We're going after Koreshtor's flagship." #the assault on Koreshtor's flagship. The Resolute and its accompanying fleet broke through the outer perimeter, heading straight for the heart of the Dominion force, the flagship, Warbringer. The battle was chaotic. Valkyrie warships swarmed around them like a plague of locusts, but Steel's fleet pushed forward. "Give me a clear shot at that flagship," Steel ordered. The ship's cannons erupted, tearing into the Dominion ships in their path. It was a blitzkrieg of destruction, but Steel's focus was unshaken. His target was the Warbringer, the command center of the entire Valkyrie invasion. As they closed the gap, Steel could see it, Koreshtor's ship a massive, jagged behemoth that dwarfed anything the UEF had ever seen. The Warbringer unleashed a torrent of energy fire, hitting the Resolute's shields, shaking the crew. "Shields holding at 30%, Lynn reported. "We can't take much more of this." Steel's jaw set. "We don't need to take much more. We just need to get close enough." The final push. As they neared the Warbringer, the Resolute fired everything it had, every last weapon, every last ounce of energy, into the Valkyrie flagship. The Warbringer's shields flickered, but they held strong. Steel's face was etched with determination. "Ram them, A collective gasp spread throughout the bridge. Lynn turned to Steel. "Sir, that's insane. We won't survive a collision like that." "We don't need to survive," Steel said quietly. "We need to stop them." Without hesitation, the Resolute surged forward, crashing into the Warbringer's hull. The impact was devastating, but the Resolute held together long enough for Steel's team to board the enemy flagship. The ultimate gamble. On board the Warbringer, Steel and his team fought their way through the chaos. Valkyrie soldiers flooded the halls, but humanity's elite forces cut through them like a hot knife through butter. They reached the control room, the heart of the flagship. Steel slammed his fist onto the command console, forcing his team to place charges throughout the flagship's core systems. The countdown began. Outside, the Valkyrie fleet faltered. Without their flagship, the Dominion forces were suddenly disorganized. "We've done it," Steel muttered. "The war changes now." As the Warbringer began to implode, Steel's team made their escape, barely making it back to the Resolute before the flagship was destroyed. A shattered victory. The battle was far from over, but the Valkyrie had been dealt a crippling blow. Koreshtor was dead, his flagship reduced to wreckage, and the Dominion fleet was in disarray. But Steel knew this victory came at a cost. Earth's defenses had been pushed to their limits, and humanity's fleet had taken devastating losses. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity's fight for survival had taken a decisive turn. The Valkyrie had underestimated them, again. Now, Earth had a chance to rise from the ashes. The battle for Earth had raged across the stars, but Steel knew that this was not the final chapter in humanity's fight for survival. Earth had withstood the Dominion's brutal assault, but the Valkyrie Dominion was vast, and they would not take this loss lying down. The Warbringer's destruction had been a massive blow, but Steel could feel the ominous weight of what was to come. Humanity had won an important battle, but the war was far from over. The Valkyrie would come again, and when they did, humanity would need more than just a few victories. They would need hope. #### regrouping. After the Warbringer's destruction, Earth's defenses had been severely depleted. The Dominion's remaining fleets were retreating, but only for the moment. They had suffered significant losses, but their commander, Koreshtor's successor, was determined to rebuild. The next assault would be more devastating. In the aftermath, Steele met with his top commanders in the UEF's command center. The room was filled with the harsh hum of quiet tension. "Admiral," Lynn said, her voice low, "we've received reports from across the system. The Dominion is regrouping. They're licking their wounds, preparing for a counterattack. We need reinforcements. Now." Steele nodded. "We've lost too many ships. Earth can't hold alone against a full-scale Valkyrie attack. We need to reach out, for help." "We don't have time," Lynn said urgently. "The Siren have already betrayed us once, and the other factions aren't exactly rushing to our aid. If we wait too long, Earth's defenses won't last." Steele stared at the hollow map, a grim determination setting in. He had to make a choice, either seek help from new, untested allies, or rely on humanity's sheer willpower to hold the line. The problem was, humanity was outnumbered, outgunned, and their options were running thin. #### a desperate gamble. Steele turned to the communications officer. "Send out a message to every faction we know. We need reinforcements, and we need them now. Tell them that if they don't help, Earth will fall, and their chance to strike the Dominion will be lost." Lynn met Steele's gaze, her expression hard. "You know most of them will ignore us, right? The Siren won't risk angering the Dominion again. The Acheron would rather see us burn than help us." "I know," Steele said quietly. "But we don't have another choice." The message was sent, and the waiting began. Hours turned into days as the battle raged on. Earth's shattered defenses were repaired in part, but the planet remained vulnerable. The Valkyrie fleet was rebuilding faster than Steele could have anticipated. He had no illusions, the next battle would be their last stand. #### a ray of hope. Then, as the last reserves of Earth's defenses began to falter, a surprise came, ****, a fleet of alien ships **** arrived, their markings unfamiliar to Steele and his crew. At first, Steele's heart sank. More Valkyrie reinforcements, was this the final blow? But then the signal cut through the static. A familiar voice spoke. "This is Captain Alara Thorne of the Oran Coalition. We've come to help." Steele blinked in disbelief. The Oran Coalition, a race of warriors and diplomats, had long been neutral in the galactic conflict, too divided among their own factions to ever commit to a larger war. But now, they had chosen to act. "Captain Thorne, are you certain?" Steele asked, his voice tight. "The Dominion will retaliate with everything they have." "We're aware," Thorne replied, her voice resolute. "But we cannot stand by while the Valkyrie wipe out your species. We're with you. We'll help you hold Earth." Steele's heart surged with relief, but he knew this was still a long shot. The Oran Coalition was strong, but not nearly enough to defeat the Dominion alone. Still, their presence gave him something he hadn't had in weeks, ****, hope ****. The final battle plans. With the Oran Coalition's ships joining the UEF fleet, Earth now had a fighting chance. Steele set the plan in motion, a joint assault to reclaim lost ground and finally break the Valkyrie stranglehold on the galaxy. The Alliance of Free Worlds would join forces with the UEF and the Oran Coalition to make a stand. In the operations room, Steele stood before his commanders, giving his orders. "This is it," Steele said, his voice carrying over the hum of the room. "The Dominion will try to take Earth once more. This time, we make them pay. Every faction in this room is here because they believe in our cause. We will stop the Valkyrie." The room filled with a renewed sense of purpose. Steele knew the coming battle would be unlike anything humanity had ever faced. It would be their last hope for survival. ###the storm is coming. As the fleets assembled in orbit, Steele looked at Earth below. His home, the cradle of humanity, would be the focal point of the battle for the galaxy's future. If they lost, there would be no turning back. But Steele wasn't ready to surrender. The war had been long, brutal, and unforgiving, but humanity had already defied the odds countless times before. And now, with the Oran coalition by their side, they would fight for their right to exist. The final battle for Earth had arrived. The stakes could not have been higher. If the Varkari Dominion succeeded, it would mean the end of humanity's fight for survival, and perhaps the fall of every free world. But for Steele, Lynn, and the commanders of the Oran Coalition and United Earth Federation, UEF, the time for hesitation had long passed. Earth's fate rested on the coming conflict. ###the calm before the storm. Steele stood at the command center, staring at Earth on the view screen. It was hard to believe that just months ago, the planet had been a peaceful, thriving homeworld. Now it was a battleground. But the war had forged humanity into something stronger. More than ever, the United Earth Federation was united in purpose, its citizens determined to defend what was theirs. The Oran Coalition was an unexpected ally, but in this moment, they were family. Lynn approached Steele, her face tense. "Sir, the fleets are ready. The Varkari Armada has been detected. They're coming in fast." Steele nodded, his eyes never leaving the view of Earth. "How long until they arrive?" "Less than an hour," Lynn replied. "We've done all we can to prepare. Now it's up to us to hold them back." Steele's thoughts were heavy, but his resolve was clear. This battle would not only determine Earth's future, it would reshape the entire galaxy. If humanity could stand against the Varkari Dominion and emerge victorious, it would send a message to every empire, every alien race that had ever underestimated the strength of humanity. ###the battle begins. As the Varkari fleet emerged from the shadows of the distant stars, Steele gave the command, "Initiate Phase 1." In an instant, the combined forces of the Oran Coalition and the UEF fleet moved into position, opening fire on the Varkari ships. A massive firestorm of energy weapons, missiles, and fighter craft engulfed space. Explosions lit up the darkness as Varkari ships exploded in flashes of light, but their numbers seemed endless. They pushed forward with relentless precision, their ships charging at Earth's defenses like a wave of destruction. Humanity's forces fought with everything they had: laser cannons, missile barrages, and close-quarters dogfights. Each ship in the fleet, each fighter pilot, each soldier on the ground was determined to hold their ground. They had already survived the worst. They would not let it be for nothing. "We're holding them back, but just barely," Lynn reported. "The Varkari fleet is overwhelming. They're going for the shields." Steele's eyes narrowed. "We need to buy more time. I'm initiating Phase 2. All forces, retreat and regroup. Fall back to secondary defenses." The battle was a tactical nightmare, but the human resolve was undeniable. The Oran Coalition ships, with their superior tactics and technology, managed to buy time for the UEF's defensive systems to realign. Earth's planetary shields flickered but held, just barely, as the Dominion pushed their attack. But Steele knew that this was only the beginning of the final assault. ###the assault on the command ship. In the heart of the battle, Steele's flagship, the Resolute, led a decisive strike at the Varkari command ship, the Bloodwrath. The Varkari had learned their lesson after the Warbringer's destruction, and their new flagship was designed to be the ultimate weapon, a fortress of nearly impenetrable shields and devastating weaponry. "Admiral, we're approaching the Bloodwrath's position," Lynn reported. "We need to break their shields if we're going to do any damage." "Fire everything we've got," Steele ordered. The Resolute's cannons opened fire, ripping into the Varkari ship. The Varkari fleet retaliated with all their might, and the Resolute's shields began to flicker under the strain. "Shields at 40%, Captain," the tactical officer said. We can't keep this up much longer. Steel clenched his fists. The battle was intense, but this wasn't just about winning, it was about sending a message. Humanity's resolve would break the Valkyrie. In a desperate move, Steel ordered a close-range assault, sending the Resolute straight into the heart of the Valkyrie fleet, ramming the Bloodwrath's shields in a suicidal move. The explosion that followed shook space itself. The Resolute was damaged, but in the chaos, the Valkyrie flagship's shields were weakened. ###the turning point. With the Bloodwrath's shields compromised, the combined fleet launched their final strike. Fighter craft swarmed like bees, and capital ships poured every last ounce of firepower into the Valkyrie flagship. The Bloodwrath's hull cracked under the onslaught, and with a final, thunderous explosion, it erupted in a massive fireball, taking with it the leadership of the Valkyrie Dominion. The Valkyrie fleet, disorganized and leaderless, faltered. The Oran Coalition and UEF ships pressed the advantage, tearing into the remaining Valkyrie forces. It wasn't long before the Dominion's fleet was broken, and Earth was finally free. ###a new era. As the dust settled in the aftermath of the battle, Steel stood at the command center, looking out over Earth. The planet was scarred, but it was still standing. The war was over, and humanity had won. In the end, the Valkyrie Dominion had underestimated humanity's will to survive, their resourcefulness, and their ability to defy the odds. The victory had not come without cost, countless lives were lost, and Earth's cities would take years to rebuild, but the message had been sent. Humanity had not only survived, but had secured its place in the galaxy. Steel's voice echoed through the command center. The war is over, but the fight for the future begins today. We are humanity. We do not bow, ****. And as the fleet returned to Earth, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if to welcome humanity's next chapter, ****, a chapter of freedom ****.